Okay, I have two antennas hung close together. How much separation should I have between the antenna support points? Two antennas hung close together. How much separation should I have between the antenna support points?
As much as practically possible. It would be ideal, but it depends on the two antennas you have close. I'm going to assume they're different bands, so they should have minimal interaction, but the farther you can separate, as practical as your situation, the better.
I used to think about that, and that's a question I probably asked Steve too, and some other folks, because I had a lot of crisscrossing going on, and I know you're using one antenna at a time, and I think where I got into trouble, there was a time, I don't think you'll remember this, Steve, but maybe you will. I was running 160 in the woods. I still do, but I wanted to do two, and you're like, hey, do like an AB, and I got two lines over the same thing in the same run, and I put them really close together. I mean, they were really close together, and they were both running in the same direction. And I think what happened was they kind of were on top of one another, parallel. And I think that's where, if it had been a natural cross, I'd have been a little better, but they were parallel in a way, or they crossed kind of parallel, and it really affected what was going on. And I decided
Yes.
I'm not gonna do that. So I think hanging them where they go parallel over top or below, you got at some issues and potential interference. Crossing, I've found, has been all right. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, when you cross like at a 90 degrees, there's very little interaction between the two antennas. But when they're parallel, there's going to be interaction. Is that as you're transmitting, the other antenna is going to act like a parasitic element, and it's going to either re-radiate. You'll see it as VSWR issues, and then or you're going to see it in the pattern where it's like, well, this is just a standard dipole. I should be talking, full to someone perpendicular to the dipole, but they're not getting it, and because it's going to skew the pattern of the antenna, so it's not going to act like the way you expect it to act. So yeah, that's where you want to kind of get it as far apart as practical, and it all depends on where you're at.
Yeah, and Ben chimed in from the chat here, but a fan dipole. So that's an interesting one too, but that's actually technically a monoband antenna. Say you have the bow tie. You got one going across the top here, flat topped across, and maybe that's 40. And then you've got another one connected to the same one-to-one balun, but it's, say, 20, something like that. There's no interference there because of what? The one-to-one balun is switching to...
Well, it's they're resonant on different frequencies, so there's no interaction. The problem you get into on a fan dipole is that if you put a 15-meter wire in there, you'll start getting some interaction because a 40-meter antenna is 15 meters is an odd wavelength from 40 meters. And so you'll get an interaction there. But between 20 and 40 meters, it's an even a wavelength or a half wavelength, and there's very little interaction going on. So it's you got to be real careful on what bands the antennas are on, and how you do where you're going to get the interaction. So yeah, the fan dipoles or the maypoles are a different story.
Different story. For complete episodes, subscribe where you get podcasts and click the bell here on YouTube for features and live streams.